Hi, I'm Sloan from SloanBella.com and I'm back with another video. This video answers a lot of you guys' questions that you send me day in and day out. I've been doing the work for many years and I wanted to explain this difference because I always get asked this question. What is the difference between a psychic, a medium, a psychic medium, a tarot card reader, an astrologer, an occultist? And so I thought I'd answer these questions directly in one video. It seems like it's going to suit us to do this. So first, let me start by saying, I believe you're born a psychic medium or a medium. Now, what is the difference between the two? A psychic is a person who can predict past, present, and future. They have clear sight, clear hearing, clear speech, clear smelling. They feel, to be clairsentient. It's all the clairs. So all that clairsentient means is to be a clear feeler, clairvoyance, a clear seer, clairaudience, a clear hearer. So it is an awareness of what's going on around. And if you take it in a little bit of a different way to look at it, I always refer to myself as a conduit between here and there, because when you pick up your cell phone, you don't really think about like why you can hear me on the cell phone or why you can hear whoever you're calling and where that goes. It's just there. It's the same with being psychic. The information comes through and how the psychic interprets it is 90% of the way that the reading is geared towards. So as a psychic person, you have to be very sure that you put your own personal feelings, opinions, and beliefs to one side and you speak without judgment. That's the key to psychic work, is to relay information without judgment, because sometimes you have a sitter that comes to you, wants information, and the information that you're getting seems insane. I'll say that happens like 90% of the time when I'm talking to somebody. I'm like, I don't understand why I'm getting this, and it's not even in my thinking. However, it's not for me to judge, it's for me to relay. So I am like the non-seen, non-heard telephone wires, it's your cell phones, the strands that go through the sky. That's exactly what a psychic is. They pick up on energetic information, auric information that comes around the human being and around the situation, and they're able to pick up threads of that and relay it to the person who they're reading for. So I believe we are born with psychic ability. I don't believe in all of these things that people are doing. They're certified. I'm a certified psychic. There's really no such thing. You either can do it or you can't. I always use this example for myself. I could go to music school for years and I could probably become proficient at reciting what I learned in school, but it's not a natural gift to me, and it would be very hard for me to actually get to the core of the creative energy. I believe that psychic work and mediumship work, even tarot card reading, are all part of the psychic arts. So it's an intuitive thing. It isn't supposed to be harnessed, credentialed, and you're not supposed to do that with it. It is an artistic, intuitive experience. That's my belief. Now, mediumship is the ability to communicate with people and their energy that has passed over to the other side. So they no longer exist in human form. So mediumship is a person who can pick up on thoughts, feelings, experiences, even see spirits that have crossed over. And again, you are born with this ability. There's no suddenly becoming it at a certain age unless you already had it. I don't believe in certifying it. I believe in the experience being individual and creative in and of itself. People mistake that a lot as if it should go in the modern day world as in, well, we have a certificate if we're a doctor. The reason doctors are certified is because they go to medical school and they cut into people. So there has to be a standard that is done in a country, we'll say America or Canada or England even. There has to be one uniform standard, or you'd have people just doing stuff strangely and killing people. It's not the same with the intuitive arts. It's not something that is necessary in your life. It's something you choose to explore. I mean, the person coming for the reading chooses to explore, and it's not a provable, tangible thing, unless, of course, you think you can prove the existence of God. People get so mad when I say this, because you can't really prove it. You either believe it or you don't. You either experience it and accept it or you don't. It's the same with psychic mediumship. The people who have this ability, and I call it an ability, much like playing basketball, and it is a muscle that must continue to be used, which means even if you are born with the ability, but you choose not to use it in your life experience, in your day-to-day world, then you might not have as strong an ability as somebody who is using it day in and day out. So there's a lot to be said for how we utilize these skills that we've been born with. So psychic mediumship is now, not all psychics have mediumship ability. You don't have to have mediumship ability to be a psychic. You can just be a psychic without being able to communicate with the energy that's passed over. Most mediums, the people who communicate with people who've crossed over, have the ability to pick up on psychic intuitive information. And all human beings have an intuitive side, but it isn't as highly developed as a person who pursues this in an authentic way, as in it's an authentic pursuit in their life. Not just, there's been so many psychics that have popped up over the years since I started doing it. It wasn't really as popular back then. In fact, it was rather shunned, but there's so many people that popped up. I believe that it's a calling. I don't even think you can do it, but I think you have to want to do it and be driven to do it on a soul level. I really feel it is a calling, and I feel that way about musicians too. I feel the really great musicians have an essence about them that can't be harnessed, can't be trained, cannot be controlled or contained. It comes from them, and you can hear it in their music. I think the same thing is true about mediums and psychics. Now, tarot cards is very interesting because people have asked me, well, why don't you use cards? Because I don't have to use tools. But it is, to me, if I can explain the use of tarot cards, there are card readers that I've met over the years that are absolutely fantastic at reading the tarot cards. I mean, they are spot on, but they are card readers. They don't claim to be psychic, and they don't claim to be mediums. They are using the insight that the cards already have shown them, so they are proficient beyond in reading cards. If you are a psychic and you do use cards, this is like an artist using paint by numbers. Maybe when they start, it is a tool used to open up your psychic insight. So if you feel like, and this is with a lot of young readers, like teenage readers, early 20s, if they don't feel comfortable stepping into a room and just like reading without, having anything around them, they will often throw out tarot cards because it gives them something to focus on, and then their psychic insight can come out. So that's like a really cool thing to do. I learned to read tarot cards rather late in my career, in my mid-30s, because when I would walk in a room and sit down and just start talking, I had a lot of clients at the time that would look at me and be like, well, aren't you just talking? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I do. And I get the information and I tell you, but they prefer to see something. So I used to carry around a deck of cards so that I could throw them out. Now I have them everywhere, but it's more that I just look at them to double check on something. If I'm picking up something, I'll throw a few cards out with the energy, and I'll get either it's similar to what I'm thinking or it's completely opposite, in which case I'm still going to go with what I get psychically because that's my natural innate ability. So I'm going to do it that way. Now, when it comes to other things such as pendulums, now people ask me, why do people use pendulums? You will often see on a lot of these ghost hunting shows where they have the pendulum. It's what you hold. It's on a rope and it's a crystal at the end, and they hold it over maps. It's kind of like dowsing, but it's using a crystal and it's using the energy of a guide on the other side. People will often call in something or someone to help them with their pendulum, and the pendulum moves on its own and it kind of guides you in the way that you want to be guided. So the pendulum work is interesting. It's a little bit of a different thing than just psychic mediumship because you're getting a third party involved with the information. And always when there's a third party, there can be two different ways of seeing the information. So I do like pendulums though. They're something I really like to use just for fun, and I like to carry them. I especially use them when I'm clearing a house because it kind of leads me into the area that I need to focus on strongly. So I tend to need help when I'm in a clearing a house of negative energy. Now, when you go to astrology, okay, astrology is my passion. When I was young, I came from the smarter, educated, oriented business family. Astrology seemed like a natural thing because it is a provable thing. And people say, well, you can't prove astrology. You can prove the erection of a chart, which means you can take a person's time and day of birth and their latitude and longitude, and you can mathematically correlate a chart and put the dial in, and you can read that information. What is not provable is the interpretation of that information. So it depends how educated your astrologer is. If it's a person who is just beginning at astrology and isn't as well versed, that's going to be a different kind of reading than somebody who has years of experience and has seen these aspects. So it's through trial and error and work that somebody learns a chart. And believe me, astrology is not an easy thing. It is an ongoing life pursuit. I so love it. It is the basis of all of my work. I was psychic as a kid. I could pick up on energy of people who passed on, but my real fun started with astrology. And I was quite young, but it was something I could continue to grow, and it has a scientific element because the conception of the child and the preceding birth. Okay, so when a child is born, if they were to come out of the womb and look straight up in the sky, it's like a snapshot is taken. It's a snapshot of potential. So the child's head is actually, technically, in theory, in the middle of the chart looking up, and the constellations are around the child, and you read that energy. Keep in mind, the planets and the stars and the fixed stars move all throughout your lifetime by degree. So this gives you a working map of potential. Now, granted, we have free will, so we can screw up. I'm sure they laugh at us on the other side all the time. Like, check out what that one just did, even though she knows better. I'm sure I get that a lot. But so you can follow somebody's progress through life. You can actually take the chart of a child, a newborn, and you can kind of predict elementally as they move through different stages in their life as you look at progressions. And what the progressions are is you can start with 2018, a baby being born, and you can look at 2034, and you can take the positions of the planet because they're documented through NASA, and you can take those mathematical positions and place them over the newborn's chart, and you can see where they've moved through their life. So it gives you a really good handle on where that child has the potential to go. Now, granted, we have the potential to do whatever it is we're going to do, so it is up to us as well. But I love astrology for that reason. And astrology, to me, is one of the more sophisticated psychic sciences, if you want to call it such. And there are certifications for astrology, but the certifications from when I took them come from being able to set a chart up by hand. Okay, people, I know we have computers and we can just punch the information in, but when I started astrology, being dyslexic and mathematically challenged, it was torturous for me. I had to get tutored on how to do the math before I got certified, and I would just make people weirdo rising signs, because if you don't know your math when you're setting up an astrology chart, somebody is going to be off by degree. And if they're off by degree, it's not their chart. Therefore, it is inaccurate. Now, the blessing of having to do it by hand is I'm very well aware when I punch it into a computer now, if I've punched in the wrong information or if the computer program is off mathematically, because I instinctually from those years know what the rising sign should be. So instinctually, I know from those years what the rising sign should be. So it's easy to see if the chart's accurate or not with the information given. But astrology is one of my favorite things. And that brings me to another thing. What is a horoscope in your newspaper, in your magazines, on camera? What does that mean? Because you're not doing a person's time of birth and doing their whole chart. So how do they read this? And I'm going to tell you, if a horoscope is done accurately in the newspaper, magazine, wherever you get it, they're going to do it by degree. And since there's 30 degrees per sign, they're going to take the first 10 degrees and do one reading for that, the middle 10 degrees, and the last 10 degrees. But most horoscopes done are written from the middle degrees. So from degree 10 to degree 20 of your astrology chart sign. So it really fits the middle road of people in the sign. Now, if your degrees of those planets are earlier or later, it's going to be a little bit different for you. That's why some people go, well, my chart isn't exactly accurate every day. So it's not like running a natal chart. And now let's get to the next thing, numerology. Numerology is similar, although not as integral in my opinion as astrology, and it is the basis of how you utilize numbers. It breaks everything down to the numbers in your name, your birth, your place of birth, and you basically can do a numerology chart. And it is a hard learned science, but it is just a little bit of a different take on things. So that is also one of the psychic arts, I call it, or one of the occult arts, or the metaphysical arts, is we have We have tarot card. Okay, I didn't mention Ouija board. Don't get your pants in an uproar here. Okay, the Ouija board, like a pendulum, has a third party behind it. It was so interesting to me that they sold, when my kids were growing up, Ouija boards at Toys R Us, because I remember my son taking it to somebody's house once and them flipping out because it was a Ouija board. And I'm like, but it's from Mattel. It's like from Toys R Us. It's interesting because it's the intent behind what you're asking on the Ouija board, and the spirits will step in and respond. So that also is a backdrop to open up psychic insight, but you have to use it in the proper way. And it's probably not something to play with, although if you get your board at Toys R Us and you're just screwing around, I don't see the harm. So when you're looking at things, there are many things that a psychic medium or a person who is intuitive is born with, and it can't be taught or learned. You can harness your gift and you can open your gift up, but the ability to actually do it is something in your DNA that you're born with. So it's not everybody can sit down and give a reading. They can have their feelings and they can have their intuition, but it's a lot different to actually go in there and weed out information and be able to decipher it, to repeat it back to the person who's asking the questions. Those are different skill levels. Now, for people in this world that are super successful, and I've said this all the way along, and they tend to have a really good instinct. They know what stock to buy, they know what businesses to buy, and they take action on those things. Those are what I call sensitives, and sensitives are people born with a heightened psychic ability who do not do it for a living, but pick up on the vibration and energy of every single thing around them. So they are just sensitives. They will never tell you they're psychic. They'll just say things like, I have a feeling, I'm thinking this kind of, this happened to me here, this happened to me there. And they will tell you how they followed their intuition, but it's a very heightened version. It's not just like, oh, I felt that I was going to, get a phone call. Those are very base level intuition. A sensitive has a heightened intuition, and they're probably quite successful at what they do business-wise because their instinct is so on target. So that is the difference. Keep in mind, people, being born psychic is something that comes through your DNA. Mediumship is something that you're born with as well, which means you can pass it on to your kids or not. So if you have 4 or 5 kids, maybe only one of them has the abilities, or maybe 4 of them have it and one of them doesn't. So it's coming through your lineage and it's opening you up in a different way. And there's so many people out there that are like, I'm a certified psychic. You cannot certify a psychic. A person can say they got a good reading from a psychic. That doesn't say anything about the psychic's ability, because sometimes the information that we get is not yet revealed to the person getting the reading. There's so many different variables. The other thing that I really hate that I see is people that go to mediums for reading, and it's like, okay, so my grandmother just died and I want you to contact her now. What on earth makes you people think that those spirits on the other side, now if I die right now and just as my kid snaps his finger and wants a reading, do you think I'm going to come back and just pop into that medium space and give information to my kid? No, I'm probably not. So there is an interaction between the medium and the spirit. It is a dance. It's a dance between the two. And it's not something that happens just like on cue like that. You can get people, but you might not get the people the person is looking for, and you can pick up on energy, but it might not come through. So if somebody is telling you they can pick up on every single energy, they're full of shit, basically, is what that is. You cannot. So it is something that is a energetic dance, and it has to be agreed upon on both sides, not just here, but over there as well. So it comes into play when you're doing the reading. Now you can meditate and ask, and you can probably pick up psychic information around the person's death or the experience, but not necessarily is the spirit going to come through directly the way that you think. It's just not going to happen like that. This is not how it works. Anyway, so that has been your video update on all of the questions you asked. I hope I've answered them for you. And again, my name is Sloan from SloanBella.com.